Silencer Central. Folks, if you want to learn something new right alongside me, check it out at silencercentral.com. I've never put a suppressor on any of my weapons, but I'm going to start now, and I'm using Silencer Central to help get me started because they walk you through the whole process, to include you can ship the rifle to them, they'll thread it, they'll put it on, and they will ship it back, and you can make payments on the whole thing while you wait for all the licensing to get approved, which they take care of for you. It's a great process, and it's a great company, American manufacturer, right there in South Dakota, and we are really excited to be partnering with them. So check it out at silencercentral.com or give them a call at 888-781-8778 and let them know that you heard it on the Western Huntsman. Hoffman Boots is my go-to boot. I love the Explorers in the 8-inch, and they've got the Vibram sole, totally waterproof, no break-in period. They just glue your feet to the mountain. You can't ask for more out of a boot, and you don't have to break the bank to get a pair. So check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Again, another American company. Local North Idaho friend of mine who runs this company decided to make some great hunting boots for all people that are serious about getting into the backcountry to chase elk and deer and bear and everything else out there. So check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Use promo code all caps lock Huntsman10 at checkout to save you 10%. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Town studio right here in Northwest Montana, brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for joining me this week. I told you guys that I wanted to do some gear-focused episodes, and when I say that, I like to talk to people that are actually experts with the gear, because I promise you don't want my opinion or stuff like that on it. So if you guys have been listening, you know I have been talking to you about Silencer Central for a long time. I have got a couple of these suppressors, and I mainly use this Banished Backcountry on my Savage rifle, and this thing is awesome. And so I've got the actual founder, Brandon. What is it? CEO, president?
Yeah, there you go.
All of the above,
janitor, whatever you want to call it.
head janitor,
yeah,
top maintenance guy, and everything else over at Silencer Central. He's a return guest. We had him on a little over a year ago. Had a really good conversation, and I thought it'd be a good idea to get him back on, and let's talk some silencers and business and hunting and a little bit of everything. How you doing, Brandon?
Perfect. Good. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining me. It's this is Silencer Central. You know, we have a lot of sponsors on the show, but I really like Silencer Central because there's something just fun and exciting about using these things and trying them out in different circumstances. Last time we spoke, Brandon, I knew nothing about using a silencer or a suppressor or anything like that, and how they worked and what the benefits were and stuff like that. Now, I don't know how I did it without one. I feel like I'd be handicapped. Like, it's bear season right now, and which, by the way, my girls and we spotted the biggest black bear I have ever seen during an open hunt. And awesome. I'm so excited to go back up and track him down. He kind of disappeared behind a ridge, and he never came back out. But we're gonna go back up and find him. I know where he's hanging out. So anyway, but now bear hunting, I'm running this Banished Backcountry on my Savage, And what I really noticed was when, like, if I'm hunting coyotes and I've got more of a distant shot, I've got maybe two or three coyotes coming into a call or something, when I crack off a shot, they have no idea where that shot came from. They hear it, but they don't
Yeah.
know where it came from. And it's like super disorienting for them. So they usually kind of spin around and look around and stop and give me just enough time to get a second shot off. And so they are a lot of fun. Um, just for anybody that might not know you or Silencer Central, give us a quick snapshot of you and the company, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, Silencer Central's been around since 2005. I got into it from basically prairie dog hunting, and always said if I'm going to drive 4.5, 5 hours to prairie dog hunt in Western South Dakota, I didn't want to take my first shot and basically see everything go under. So that's kind of how I got into the suppressors. And I didn't have a great purchase experience when I bought one. It just seemed like they were putting all the burden on me as the consumer. And that's when I thought, gosh, I want to get my own license, honestly, just to make it easier for me. And then my wife leaned on me a little bit. The license to sell silencers is pretty expensive. So she thought I should probably sell a few to make up for that. And um, yeah, it kind of started from there. And Silencer Central's in all 42 states where silencers are legal. People can call us or buy online, and we actually ship it to their front door. Um, but about me, I'm a pharmacist by trade. So a lot of people think that's kind of weird or unusual that I would go from being a pharmacist to, largest silencer dealer in the nation. But it just sort of evolved. I still keep my pharmacy license up, but I always say that, just the attention to detail that I guess I had to have to be a pharmacist, right patient, right bottle, right medication, right doctor. Same kind of stuff with the ATF paperwork, right silencer, right caliber. Everything has to be like super buttoned down from detail oriented perspective. So it's the only connection I can find between the two. But it's been fun. We've been doing it almost 20 years. And I would say Silencer Central's whole goal is how do we focus every day to make the process easier for the customer to buy? Because we find the easier we make it, the more interested they are. And, we're proud to say 40% of our sales are actually repeats. So, people end up liking the process, liking the suppressor they get, and then they call and, they get another one. And we do sell pretty much everything out on the market. So if someone's looking for something, one thing I could do is go to our website or give us a call. But, yeah, I'm trying to think if that was enough about me. Yeah, so I'm originally from the Southeast. I grew up like the Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina area, but then my wife's from South Dakota, so that's how I ended up here, and um, made it easier to kind of get into shooting a little bit more out here because the in-laws were into it really big. So it kind of helped,
Yeah,
getting pressure from the wife if her whole family's into it.
yeah, that helps
Yeah,
for
totally,
sure.
100%,
Huh.
100%.
It's a really cool story. I talk about this on the show all the time. My passion and my love for people that take an idea and turn it into a brand and build it into a business, and the success that takes. And I could tell you, like, what's unique with what you've done with Silencer Central. And I'm kind of speaking more from like a company culture standpoint.
Right.
It was really intimidating for a guy that didn't know anything about suppressors, and getting on the website and reading a little bit about what the ATF is going to require of you to get this whole process going. It felt like, my initial reaction was, it felt like it was too much of a pain in the butt, for lack of a better term, to
Yep.
pursue it, right?
Yeah.
And then we started the process. And I don't know if your team even knew that I was with Eastman's, and I was one of the sponsor podcast hosts, or whatever we call that.
Yeah, no, they
I,
wouldn't. Yeah, we don't have any way to flag, But
I
I mean, yeah, like I tell sometimes we had the founder son of Walmart buy one, and no one even knew it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It was interesting because I felt like you don't get that kind of customer service these days anymore.
sure.
Usually you get on the phone with a company and you're, oh, press one for this, press two for that, and then you sit on hold, and the person that picks up is, you can either barely understand them, or they're not very friendly. That's kind of the two options you get anymore. And man, it just wasn't the case with Silencer Central. I got it. Your customer service team was like world class. They made me feel like I was the only person on their plate for the day to deal with. And it made the whole ATF process super easy. It's kind of fun. You go through and fingerprint yourself and all this
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah, totally.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. And we keep them
yeah.
on file so the next one easier. Yep.
Can you tell everybody what the process is now? Because it sounds like it's gotten even easier since I've done it. But so if there's listeners out there that are thinking about getting like a banished backcountry, which is my favorite one so far.
All right.
Um, let's say they're considering that, but they kind of have that same mindset that I did, where it's like, man, that just sounds like a big pain in the butt. I don't know if it's worth it. Tell everybody what the process looks like now.
Yeah. So I should like even step back and just remind people, like, if they're on the fence, in all my days of doing this, I've never met anyone that after they shot suppress said, I will only shoot suppress moving forward. And that's unusual. I mean, like, I can't think of any other scenario where someone says, yes, once I tried it, I'll never go back. That's like a big statement to have that many people. Um, so the process itself is very similar to what it was before, but what has really changed, honestly, is the ATF's processing of the forms. So I should clarify because it gets a little confusing. So typically, we recommend consumers use a trust, and trust in our mind really is the best way to buy it. Right now, we're seeing probably a month for them to approve a trust. But if you want to buy it as an individual, which is an option, it just means that you couldn't lend it to a relative or son, or you couldn't. If you have a trust, you can put their name on it as long as they're 18 or older, and then they can use it without you being there. But you can buy it as an individual, and right now we're seeing an average of 4.8 days from when we submit the paperwork till the feds approve it. Some of them are even real
Oh,
time.
wow.
Yeah, we'll submit it in the morning at 8 a.m. and they submit them in a batch, batches to the FBI. And here's the clarification. So 71% of them, they're basically approving real time. The only time, the 29% that are what I would call delayed, is if you've ever been arrested, they have to check and see how it ended. What were you charged with? And then would it keep you from being able to buy a firearm? The other one is if there's a felon in your state with a similar name, a similar date of birth, they have to check just to verify you're not them. So it takes a manual review, which adds a little bit more time to it. We're the largest, dealer. So our trust they're very familiar with. So their goal is to get down to say like a week or two on the trust because they still want to kind of read through and make sure you didn't sneak a name in there that you're not having a background check done on. But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so the process is still very similar where think of it as we're managing it for you, but the benefit is that right now 71% of people are getting an email from the ATF within, sometimes even real time saying, "Hey, you're approved." And then that starts the process where we can mail it to your front door. So that's, it's really changed us completely. The smart thing with Silencer Central is, we've done a really good job with working with manufacturers to get us product. And
Hmm.
as of right now, knock on wood, we're not out of inventory, whereas really almost every manufacturer in the industry is completely out of inventory because they basically were manufacturing everything in house. So it's hard to scale it up if you've only got so many machines and so many people. Where we typically have five larger defense contractors that make for us and dual sourcing. So it was able to take five companies and say, hey, how do you add another shift and help us scale it up? So we're selling as many in the summer, which used to be a slower time, as we were selling in the winter.
Hmm.
It's usually our busy time. So it's definitely creates more demand when you tell a guy, hey, you could potentially get it approved within, say, 5 days, and then might take 10 to 12 for us to finish up the paperwork and get it mailed to your front door. But still, that's a significant improvement of the average of last. I'd say the average when I first started, honestly, it only took about 2 weeks because no one was buying them. But I'd say for the last 10 years, the average has probably been 9 months. So to take that
Hmm.
down to, 5 days is pretty impressive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, mine took I don't know, 3 to 5 months, somewhere in that
Sure.
neighborhood.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And this was gosh, what, 18 months ago, or maybe it
Sure.
was just last year. I don't know. Either
Yeah.
way, it was quite a bit longer than the 4 or 5 day time span. And so that's pretty impressive when you've got
Oh, yeah.
a government entity that actually improved something as
Yeah.
the
You
ATF
know,
process.
I went and met with him because I wanted to make sure that I understood what the fix was. Because the fix is going to break tomorrow, then I'm not going to, it's going to change how I operate. But this is my honest assessment of the situation. The lady, and I loved her to death, but the lady that was in charge, I think it was just too much for her or whatever. So she backed out of being in charge of the whole NFA National Firearms Branch, took another role in the agency, is my understanding. The guy that came in as an interim role, he appeared to me to be a gun guy because he could talk about guns very profusely. and he was an attorney. So he went through the process that the e-form system was going through. He was able to cut out 80% of what was happening as far as touch points or processes because he said he knew statutorily what was required to be done because he's the lawyer.
Hmm.
And by him actually working the forms a few a day just to get a feel for it, he realized the computer was checking a lot of stuff that had never gotten cut out of the process when it used to all be 100% paper. So by him putting on his legal hat, he was able to cut out where now they're only having to do 20% of the work they were doing before. And then also they changed their process. Like their workflow used to be like if you would go to, say, a fast food restaurant, you ordered a hamburger and you want extra mustard and no pickles and 4 slices of lettuce. Before they would say sit in line and wait, and then everybody backed up behind you while they did a special order for you. Now ATF says, go park over here in space number one, and then they service all the other people whose background checks go through quickly. Because before they would literally sit on them for months, and then they would try to do a background check right before they were about to review it because they didn't want the background check to be a year old. So they would
Yeah.
kind of almost stage them. Now they're like, hey, if a person has a clean record, they've never been arrested, and there's no felon in their state with the same name, then let's get them out. 71% of them, they're getting out real time. So just, I would say two good strategic thoughts they put into it to speed it up. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it does show you that throwing more money at something, not always the best way to fix it. It's just sitting
Yeah.
down and looking at the, obstacle itself.
I'm always curious about, now that I have one and I've used it and I understand its function and I understand like the benefit as well. I Why are they so heavily regulated? I think we kind of
Yeah.
touched on this last time because I it is way easier for me to go buy a firearm than it is to put the silencer on it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Why
Oh,
is that?
100%. 100%. So this is like what the lawyers tell me, and they've researched it and they were interested in this. So they said that so the National Farms Act was created to regulate the machine guns kind of during the whole, bank robbery era in 1930s. And so the $200 tax is equivalent to 100% tax on a machine gun. So the average machine gun in
Mhm.
1930s was $200. So that process is what was created. So the government, U.S. government, the Congress, senators, they wanted to put handguns into the same process as machine guns. But I guess people gave enough pushback saying, hey, we just got rid of prohibition. For years, we couldn't have alcohol. And now you've just allowed us to have alcohol again. You can't take away our handguns. And so the trade off of the handgun was let's put silencers in there. And my perception is there was no one at the table that had enough familiarity with silencers to say, hey, what are you doing? That doesn't make sense. Like there was no advocate there sort of pushing back on that direction. And because of that, just by default, someone suggested it as a trade for handguns and pistols. And so no one objected, and that's what happened, and it's just been there ever
Huh.
since. And then obviously we all know the movies haven't given it the perfect perception. Like you said, the coyote still
Yeah.
hears it. We just can't tell where it came from because I used to, at shows in the Dakotas, almost 100% of the people I'd sell to were coyote shooters. So they would always say, hey, I would shoot, and if I missed and the bullet dropped behind them, a lot of times they thought that's where it came from and they'd start running towards me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's still sound there, but the movies have depicted it as 100% silent, and the perception of the elected officials is that that could be a horrible public safety issue if everyone had one of these things. So the chances of them being deregulated to be equivalent to a firearm just it's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to take more
Yeah.
people buying them and a lot of education, a lot of years of focus.
It just is sometimes it's frustrating watching the wheels of legislative action like that change and turn because it seems like such a misunderstanding to have them regulated so heavily, especially
Agreed.
now owning them because and I think you're right, Hollywood has a lot to do with that. I was watching my wife and I were watching this show and I don't even remember the name. We don't watch a lot of TV anyway, but this guy's sneaking around in a library and he's got this
Oh,
big silencer on his pistol, and it goes when he's
yeah.
shooting it. And it's like, man, that is just not what that does. It's
No.
not reality. And so it kind of ruined me for action movies with silencers in them. But it's worth it for sure. So hopefully that can change though in the future.
Yeah,
And
hopefully. I mean, it would definitely benefit us. We could sell a whole lot more if the regulations were less. But I still feel like it feels like kind of a new industry almost because, like,
yeah.
um, but I always ask people that, like, if I meet someone who's in the industry and I say, if they don't have one, I ask why, I usually say the paperwork. So that's why it's
Yeah.
kind of a reminder to me that I'm in the right focused area of trying to make the paperwork simpler if that's the biggest obstacle why people typically don't buy.
Yeah. And for anybody listening, the paperwork is not that hard, especially
Um,
now that it's sped up. It's like the customer service folks at Silencer Central walk you right through. I mean, all you have to do is just follow exactly what they say, and it's super easy. Um, do I guess that process when that's let me get back to this question because I asked you, if people were intimidated before with the thought of the paperwork and the ATF
yeah.
process, and maybe that was kind of what was on the fence. Can you explain to people what the benefits, especially for hunters, to having a suppressor on a hunting rifle outside of like coyote hunting?
Yeah, totally. I mean, obviously the obvious one is sound. You don't have to wear earplugs. I mean, what I like about that is typically when I'm hunting, it's a social environment in some way. Either I'm with friends or kids or cousins or something. And that ability to still be able to communicate is just great to be able to talk to them and not have to wear earmuffs and not have to worry about did I forget to put my earmuffs on? If an animal came up and I did want to take a shot or some person next to me didn't, just creates that delay. So obviously the hearing benefit's good. The other thing that sometimes we don't do a good enough job mentioning is recoil reduction. So what you'll see with the suppressors, you'll see pretty much equivalent to a muzzle brake. A muzzle brake will reduce recoil by 40 to 45%. You see the same benefits in a silencer. Of course, the
Mm-hmm.
negative of a brake is it's twice as loud, whereas the silencer is getting it to hearing safe. So that's
Yeah.
that's a benefit. What I've seen like real hand, like sort of like first hand as a hunter, like I've done some like guided hunts and you'll typically have like say a tracker there and a professional hunter and they're shocked that they can tell by the impact of the bullet whether it's a kill shot. Because sometimes you might shoot and the percussion of the gun going off is so loud you don't actually hear the impact of the animal. But even prairie dogs, I used to say it sounded like a wet rag like popping, and just you could just tell the impact instantly. So there's some benefits there where it's a kill shot or you need to get another round loaded or um, the other benefit too, like you mentioned with the coyotes, is I would say almost every time I've hunted it, probably the most noticeable one as I went on oryx hunt in New Mexico and I shot one, it tipped over and the other two females are sitting there looking at him like, what the heck happened? Is he taking a nap? Like literally, we had to like run him off. I mean, if there had been two males in there, we were trying to shoot two, we would have definitely been able to got as many as we wanted. They were all just kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to Jim there. It's just
Yeah, exactly. I think that's going to be, I've always had this fantasy of whether I'm with my daughters or like some buddies or whatever, where we get two in one,
yeah.
like a two for one deal
Oh yeah.
kind
Oh
of
yeah.
thing.
Totally. Totally.
So I've got my buddy coming from North Carolina to hunt bear, and we're gonna pop over into Idaho, and
Oh,
this is like
perfect.
2 weeks from now, and so I'm gonna go set up a bait barrel, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
what I noticed in June is because it's kind of bears are coming into that breeding season, and so the boars are kind of cruising together, which is
Oh
different than when you think about like the rut during September for elk because they
yeah.
split off and avoid each other. For some reason, when I get a bait barrel set up in June, I'll get two or three boars come into the bait site together, and they're usually
Interesting.
you don't see the boars hanging out like a big one with a little one. They're all similar sized, and they're
Oh,
usually the bigger ones. So it's kind of my goal, and I'll keep you posted on this, Brandon. But
oh
my
yeah. That's kind of
goal
cool. Yeah.
is me and Kevin go up there, and we have a couple of boars come into the bait site, and he's got I think he's got the Banish. I think it is the backcountry. I don't know. I'll ask him. But we've both got these silencers, and I
Yeah.
want like, okay, you take a shot, and then I'll take a shot. So he could pick since he's the guest. I'm going to let him pick the first bear
That's
because
nice.
I'm not picky,
Yeah.
and I want to see if we can get like a 2-for-1 deal. And
That's pretty
so
cool. That's
yeah, it's
neat.
going to be fun, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that holds a lot of water. What you said is that's gonna like if we did not have the silencers on there, that would not be an option,
Oh,
especially with bear. As soon as that first shot goes off, those bears it is like a hurricane. They are gone,
totally.
and so this is going to give us the opportunity to maybe if he sauces that first one, I'm going to
Yeah.
have 3 to 4 seconds to get that second one, and so wish me luck with that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I've hunted black bear in Idaho a couple years ago. It was fun. I mean, that was
Hmm.
I remember I was sitting there waiting on bait and I thought, man, there's not going to be one come. It's too early. And I look up and I go, oh my gosh, there's one there. And it was almost like a brown blonde or whatever. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, this is awesome. Like I would totally wasn't expecting because I was on the top of a mountain. It was the best reception I could get, that whole week. So I'm up there checking emails and I look over and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a bear.
Yeah. It's, what's amazing with bears is they just will surprisingly pop out at the most unexpected places. And
Yeah.
if you think the Banish backcountry is quiet, wait till you see a black bear 30 feet in front of you.
I
That's
know.
quiet.
Oh yeah,
And
because he came up out of nowhere. I mean, I was
oh,
just
yeah.
facing the opposite direction, laying down, and wasn't that far away. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't hear him.
Oh man, it's so funny how this I've only been bear hunting for I don't know 5 or 6 years, like serious bear hunting, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
quickly becoming one of my favorite hunts. There
that's
is
awesome. Yeah.
just there is just something about these things. Me and the girls were up 2 nights ago and walking down this trail, and it got real muddy, and all of a sudden I look down and there's grizz tracks in the mud, and I could tell it's a sow with two cubs, and I'm like, well, girls, turn around. We're getting out of here. And
Yeah, totally.
they were pretty fresh. So,
That's
uh,
cool.
yeah, fun times, man. If you ever want to come hunt a
Oh,
bear
okay.
in either Montana or Idaho, hit me up. Let me know. I,
Oh
I
yeah, for
love, I
sure.
love
Oh, I
bringing
loved
people.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The,
So
the bad news was the one I shot, the freezer broke, and now I can't get it mounted. I guess it messed it up. So I
the
got to
it
go back.
the freezer broke.
Yeah, the people I
Oh,
went with, I had already paid the taxidermist and everything, full body mount, going to put it in the office, be super cool. And then, not that it was a huge one, but it was my first one. And I
yeah.
guess he said the freezer broke. And so I guess it rotted or I don't know.
Oh no,
Yeah,
man,
it
that's
is.
terrible.
Yeah, it is
Well,
what it is.
I hope you got your money back.
Yeah, it made me think about that the other day because they said they want to mail me a check. So I got to check and see. It was like, I think it was a 2 grand deposit yeah. So you're right. I need to
Oh
check on
yeah, yeah. You need to check that out. I'd getting that money back. That'll
Totally.
that'll pay for your next Idaho bear trip.
Yeah, you're right. 100%.
So cool. Yeah, and I wanted to comment on guys, those of you listening, what I'll do, and I keep meaning to do this, and it's like just a matter of me actually getting out there and doing it. But if you guys want to hear like the difference between, I'm sure you guys, Brandon, have videos and stuff like
Oh yeah.
that, but I'll go out in the backyard here and I'll take this Savage and I'll shoot it without the backcountry on there, and then I'll pop the backcountry on, and you guys can just kind of compare the sound difference. It's pretty cool.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's and it doesn't add. This is another concern I've heard from some of my
Yeah.
listeners who because I do the Silencer Central ads, and then
Yeah.
I'll have people will send those direct message on Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever. Hey,
Yeah.
thinking about doing this, but I'm concerned about the weight.
Yeah.
Um, from my experience, and in full disclosure, I have the other silencer that I haven't even put on. I think it is the Banish 30, so
Yeah.
I can't speak to that one.
Yeah.
But the backcountry, it doesn't really add any weight that's noticeable to me. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, good question. So, a lot of people are putting pressure on us to try to find something that was really light, quiet, and maybe a little bit fatter, so it's not as much length on it. So when I first started doing this, the standard for a suppressor was 1.5 inch for a 30 cal and even a 223. We stretched that out a little bit to like 1.6 plus, and so it sounds bigger than it is, but you can't really tell the difference between that and 1.5 inch diameter.
Hmm.
But it's only 5.5 inches long. So by the time you screw it on, typically you have 3/4 of an inch of thread. So it's going to take it down to adding less than 5 inches to the front of the rifle. And then the weight is 7.8 ounces. So a guy wrote an article the other day, said it's lighter than your cell phone. And I remember picking up my cell phone and I was like, yeah, it is lighter than the cell
Yeah,
phone.
it
And
is.
it's 100% titanium, which most people are too cheap to use titanium to make silencers. But to me, it's the best thing to do. Just it's super hard to machine, so it's strong. It's things that you see typically used in military applications, aircraft, missiles, things like that, because it's strong and lightweight. So that titanium being super light and strong. I mean, that the good thing about that backcountry, it's rated for Remington Ultramax, so you can really, and I guess you could tell too. It's hearing safe. It's quiet, which is hard to believe something that short is.
Oh no, it absolutely is, and that's the one I'll use in the video for. So,
Yeah.
guys, make sure you're on if you're on the Instagram at the Western Huntsman, follow along with that, and I'll post that video there. Because that's the surprising thing. It's a short little stubby.
Yeah.
Um, suppressor, and I'll
Yeah.
do the whole thing in real time to show you how fast it is to go from just my open muzzle to having that suppressor on there. Um, the Can you speak to Brandon? And I have noticed a little bit of a difference in how my rifle shoots at around that 200-yard mark.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it doesn't, and before that, it doesn't. But maybe it's something I'm doing, or something you know about that the suppressor does. How does it affect accuracy and shooting
Yeah.
and ballistics and stuff like that?
Yeah, good question. So it typically speeds up your bullet a little bit, not a lot, 15, 20 feet per second. So, but, I can't think of anything that would happen specifically at that like 200-yard range because the thing is the hole through the middle is bigger than the bullet, so nothing's touching. So that's a
Hmm.
benefit. And if you look at the silencer baffles, they're all concentric all the way through. So there's nothing touching. The airflow is all the same, so it shouldn't impact that. I'd say you just want to make sure that the silencer is seated like all the way down flat against. I know sometimes with Savage I have to push a little bit harder to make sure, and it just makes sure that the end of the silencer is 100% flush with kind of um, the whatever you consider the end of the barrel there. The screws go into. Just make they're seated correctly right there, and then you should be in good shape.
How hard do I crank that? Because I just hand tighten it down.
Yeah.
And I never know if I'm like overdoing it
Yeah, you
or
don't have to
whatever.
worry about over tightening it because it won't go any further once that seat's in place. It's the
Okay,
shoulder. Shoulder was the name I was thinking of. But yeah, as long as it shoulders up 100%, just want to make sure there's no light in there. You can't see any light between the silencer and the shoulder of the end of the rifle where it's threaded. And if there
gotcha.
is, we have a chaser that we could put on there and fix it for you to get the barrel to make sure it's threaded 100% down. But I can't think of anything that would be happening at 200 yards. I mean, I guess the only advice I would have, which you probably already do, is just sight it in at 200. So then
Yeah,
it's going to be right on.
yeah. Maybe I'll try that. It's probably user error or something I'm doing at that. It's actually funny. I even now that I say that, I've always kind of had an issue around that 200. If it's 199 yards or closer, it's toast. If it's 250 or better, up to about 450, 500, it's toast.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I have always kind of struggled at that 200 mark. Maybe some of you experts out there, because there's a lot of you I've noticed on social media, can send me an email and let me know what I'm doing wrong here. But yeah, no, that's awesome. It's been a lot of fun, Brandon, watching this company from like when I've noticed a lot of growth.
Good.
And I have a lot of respect for that because, again, I told you I'm really passionate about somebody who takes an idea to a brand to a business and builds this American dream and provides something for people of value, whether it's the customer or your employees. And that was another compliment, and I wanted to throw your way. Everybody I dealt with at Silencer Central seemed really happy and really proud to work there,
Good. Good.
and
Good. Yeah.
and that's important. You don't get that a lot anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm a business. I'm a business owner as well. I have a little roofing company, and so
Cool.
I like to learn from guys like you. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life, the starting a business and building it and kind of getting it to where it's at now, where it's kind of pumping on all four cylinders kind of thing.
Yeah. I tell you, going back to your original question, we always do, quarterly sort of an employee survey just to get their feedback. And, we have the same challenges any company would, better communication and better recognition and things like that. But one thing that I always call out is like the score of do I like what I do on a scale of like 0 to 5, it's always 4.5 to 5. I mean, people really I think they can see the evidence of what they're doing. They can see the benefit to the customer. Typically, being in South Dakota, more outdoors type people, or maybe they're married to someone who's into the outdoors, so they can relate to the benefit they're bringing to the table, which helps. I know the machine shops that we work with, the defense contractors that make our suppressors, they'll say that too, that if they make a little widget that goes into a forklift, or it's hard for their employees to visualize it, but when they're making a silencer for us and then they see it on social media and they see people using it, they get to use it themselves, it just changes. They're just able to really kind of relate to what's going on. um I would say that if you read all the statistics about starting a business, you would never start one because basically it says it's going to be impossible and you'll never survive.
That's
And
no
I always,
joke.
yeah, and I always say that if someone had sat down with me and told me all the problems I was going to have to deal with, I probably would have been the same. But I'll tell you the stat that stuck with me that I like to share with people is that um, most like 85% of all businesses fail. Well, I read this stat and it was sort of a reverse stat. It said if you, as an employee, were able to make a business successful for someone else, you have an 85% chance of being successful when you go out on your own. And I had done pharmaceutical sales and marketing and a lot of stuff in the pharmaceutical industry at a high level at some of the biggest companies in the world. And I think it gave me a confidence that okay, I can relate to becoming the best sales rep, best sales manager, best business unit manager in multi, billion dollar companies. I feel sure I could do this for myself. And so having that confidence in having done that and seeing that statistic made me kind of jump in with, well, I'll figure it out. And I think it gave me the confidence to, sort of find ways to make it through it. And hopefully I'm a part of the statistics of, hey, did a really good job as an employee. I think I could do just as good as self-employed. Um, I would say that, there was times when, gosh, it was slow. I remember some shows I would work and I'm like, gosh, I'm a pharmacist. I could be making, really good money working at a drugstore counting pills. And I just spent the whole weekend at a gun show and barely sold enough to cover the gas because people just didn't believe they were legal or they didn't see a benefit to them. Or I just
Yeah.
couldn't connect with the crowd. Maybe I'd gotten far enough away from, into Nebraska where some of the areas were too, urbanized and there wasn't enough people out shooting, hunting. And the things I read that I think helped me the most were just being persistent, because if you read about entrepreneurship and business, they always talk about the person that's successful really just hung on for like, an extra day or an extra hour,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they tried one more time, or so I would always pride myself in that. Like if I feel like, gosh, this feels the worst, I can't keep doing this. Because my parents, I feel like were, gosh, this guy went to, UNC Chapel Hill, which is the number one pharmacy school in the country, where he was president of student body. He got a full scholarship to Duke University to get an MBA, and he wants to sell parts for a gun. Has our son completely lost it? Like, why would our son, who went to college for 8 years at these top schools, want to sell parts for a gun? I mean, so there's that
Yeah.
pressure too of the family thinking this guy's insane, and then you feel like sales aren't going, and you're feeling like, okay, maybe they were right. Maybe I do need to go to the mental institution. I am not insane. But I think just continuing to push through and then finding that energy to say, hey, every book I read, every quote I read says that I'm one step away from success, which helped kind of drive me to move to the next step. And then you started seeing that glimmer of light of success. And then that's what gave you the additional momentum to,
Hmm.
try to find more. But it's just like anything else in life. Like, as soon as you solve one problem, you get self-satisfaction out of it. And then before you know it, another problem surfaces. So it's just, it is kind of a whack-a-mole. You feel like you got one thing fixed and then something else pops up. But
Yes. Yeah.
it's funny because I do a CEO luncheon every month where anyone that has a birthday in that month, I, supply lunch. And the goal is to get rid of all the barriers in the organization. You can ask me anything. You can ask me, are we going to merge or buy or sell or whatever you want? What are we going to promote this week? What's the focus? Whatever they want. It's sort of an open forum. And I heard a lady say something that um, at the lunch, she said, I worked at the local hospital here for 20 years, and I've learned more in the last 2 years than I did 20 years there. And I was like, why? And she goes, we're growing so quick. There's so many new challenges that I just get so much momentum out of fixing a problem and then fixing the next one. And it just kind of escalates up. And then you feel like you're solving bigger problems and it gives you more sort of adrenaline, dopamine, and makes you want to tackle the next one. So
Yeah.
it's been fun. We're definitely very fortunate and blessed. I always think I felt like it was a growing market. There was a lot of opportunity there. I would say our business approach is honestly 360% different than anyone else. I mean, most people are making silencers and then they're pushing them to a dealer or they're pushing them to a wholesaler. Whereas, we're working events and talking to people and ask them what they want. And then we're creating that product. And then in most cases, we're selling it direct. So we're kind of cutting
Yeah.
out dealer, we're cutting out the wholesaler. And we're trying to have that customer relationship where they work directly with the person they're paying as the person who's going to ship it to their front door. So
Yeah.
it's completely different business model. In my mind, it almost kind of disrupts the whole business plan that most people have of, a lot of firearms have always been two-step distribution, and we've pretty much eliminated that for our products, which it scares some people because they see it competing with them. So yeah, it creates a lot of different dynamics. But I guess the big take home is don't feel like you can't succeed. Read the stats that say you can if you've been successful helping someone else. And the other one is when you think you're at that last step where it's not going to work, just remember that just push through it. Might be a day, might be a week, might be a month, but that's when you're going to have like the success and it's going to, I always say, I feel like I'm pushing a rock uphill every day. And then I'm hoping for the day it rolls downhill and I'm watching it go down because it's going to be a great,
Hmm.
just watching it roll down because all that weight pushing it up. But eventually you're going to get there. And then when you do start seeing that rock roll on its own, that just gives you more momentum to try to find somewhere else to create some more opportunity.
See, I need to hear a lot of that stuff. I really do. I mean, it's funny. I follow Dave Ramsey and that
Oh,
entree
yeah.
leadership stuff that
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Me
uh,
too.
that he talks about, and I love it. So I am definitely, he talks about the 5 stages of business, and
Yes.
I am in that treadmill operator stage
Yeah.
where, like, one day, Brandon, I am on top of the world. I think that I am the world's finest roofing company owner, and I made the best decision in the world, this
Yeah.
can never be topped. And then the next day, I'm like, holy cow! How could I be so dumb? How did I make such a terrible mistake? I am
Yeah.
I am the dumbest business owner that has ever been graced in all of Montana or whatever, and it is really this roller coaster ride of highs and lows in terms of emotions, and it's stressful. I mean, it is really
Yeah.
stressful, and so,
Totally.
but there's something, within that stress for me, and I think this is probably true for any entrepreneur. There's something in that stress that is also liberating, because it's a
Yeah.
different. I'm like what you were talking about. I spent many years in the sales and marketing side of the commercial roofing industry and the residential roofing industry, and so I'm kind of. I decided it was time to go out on my own, right? And
Yeah.
I could take those skills that I've learned from some great business leaders over the years and apply them to my own company. And a lot of it is working really well. In fact, quite a bit better than I expected it to.
Good.
However, there's other things that it's the unexpected things that are surprising me. And so but even still, back to the point that I meant to make, there is that there is liberation in that stress. I
Yeah.
enjoy the burden of it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
No, totally. For me, yeah. What's interesting is my wife and I are complete opposite. I mean, I often say she's scared to cross the road if a car's driven across that road in the last 2 weeks. That would be risky, or I might get hit. You know, whereas
Hey,
me, I'm the
I think
exact
she's
opposite.
related to my wife.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. My wife, she thought I was because I don't always tell a lot of people, but I had, in my wife's opinion, the best job in the pharmaceutical industry here in South Dakota, and I got fired because they heard I was selling silencers on the side. So you can just imagine my wife like. You had the best job. You had benefits from a French company. I mean, they paid you to stay home when we had our second daughter. I mean, what were you thinking letting them find out you're doing silencers? She just, oh, it was just devastating her. I mean, it just completely crushed her. Whereas, I mean, at the time it didn't feel great, but in retrospect, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I like the challenge of figuring it out. And over time, you get a self-confidence of I always find a way. Sometimes I
Hmm.
deal with things that are regulatory or even I dealing with things like sales tax issues or whatever. And you never know what's going to happen, but I always try to keep that positive. I'll figure out a way. I always figure out a way. I wouldn't be here
Yeah.
today if I didn't figure out a way. So it does build a confidence because I think that your brain, you wire your brain to go, I'll figure out a way. And then eventually you do. You just figure out a
Hmm.
way. If you start out with that mindset of, no, 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 I'm going to figure out a way. We'll figure this out. Then kind of people buy into that. Like, yeah, he's got a good track record to figure it out. We'll figure it out. And then
Yeah.
everyone's got on the same page of there's a way. We just got to figure it out. It's not ever
Yeah.
given.
I mean, that's so true too. I just actually dealt with that exact thing where I thought it was the end of the world over a little workers' comp issue.
Yeah.
It turns out I just filled the paperwork out wrong, and
Oh,
so the quote was like 5 times higher than it should have been.
yeah.
And yeah, it's stuff like that, and it ties together with hunting too. Hunting. That's, I think, why especially men are so drawn to hunting is this challenge in the backcountry after this wild thing, and working that out in our mind. Okay, there's a big elk. He's screaming his head off. If he had the chance, he'd pick me up on top of those antlers and drag me around for the next month. And
Yeah,
so I've got to figure out how to outwit this beast and work this problem out and figure it
yeah,
out. And it's
yeah,
kind of the same thing. And there's a real similar excitement I feel between running a business and hunting.
yeah.
And
I
I
like it.
think
That's
that,
good.
it's exciting, man. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like that analogy. That's good. No, totally true. Yeah, I enjoy it too. I mean, it's obviously easier as you get bigger because you feel like you got a little bit of momentum. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed it too when it was small. I mean, I even liked being more involved. I enjoyed they still let me do sales occasionally at the booths and stuff, and I enjoy it. It's fun because I'll run into people I sold to, 15, 20 years ago. They'll be like, "Oh man, I can't believe you were actually working a booth." I'm like, "Of course. How are we
Yeah.
supposed to know what the customer wants unless we're talking to them here live?"
Yeah, no, very true. That's what one thing that really sets your company apart is you everybody seems to be really hands-on. I mean, your customer service reps that were just supposed to help me with the ATF paperwork really knew a lot about the product.
Good.
And that's a rarity. Your sales guy, super. I wish I could remember his name so I can like give him kudos to the boss, but
Yeah, yeah,
I can't remember. It was last
that's
year,
right.
so but he did a great job explaining the different products and why this one would work for me and that one would work for somebody else, and just a lot of knowledge and especially that's helpful for a guy that just didn't know anything about it. Um, I had that popped a question into my mind. Now I'm like drawing a blank on that. In terms of the ordering process, can you tell people there was something really unique, and maybe this doesn't apply anymore because the ATF process has sped up, but you guys would kind of allow people to do like this payment plan
Yes,
as
yeah,
they went through the ATF
yeah.
process. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so we let people we call it pay while they wait, like they call it easy pay. We don't charge any interest or any fees. It really started for me working gun shows, sportsman shows, farm shows, whatever. Guys would come up and say, "Hey, my wife will kill me if I spend this much money on a silencer and I'm not going to see it for a while." So we typically let people say put down 200 bucks, 100 bucks, whatever you want to put down, and then when it's approved, just pay it off. But
Hmm.
um typically when it was a longer wait, people just pay monthly, but now typically they'll put like say, 200 bucks down and then they might pay monthly, but now that they're getting approved so quickly, it doesn't normally happen that way. They're going to get an email saying they're approved and then we just say, "Hey, as long as you pay it off on your credit card or whatever before we ship it to you, everything's good." But yes, the same number of people who used to use the Easy Pay still use it. I think the Easy Pay encouraged people to maybe buy 3 or 4 at a time and then make payments on it because it was interest free.
Hmm.
They could justify that. I think now what you're seeing is people maybe not buy as many at one time because they know they could probably get another one pretty quick, but they're still using the easy pay just as much. But it's convenient. I mean, I would say it's sort of our customer centric approach of we're in the boat with you. Hey, I want you to get it as quick as you can too, because we
Yeah.
know 40% of our sales are repeats. So you're going to buy another one. You're going to tell a buddy. So, and I got to pay
Yeah.
insurance for it. It's sitting out on the shelf. So I want you to get it as soon as possible. So we're in the boat with you. We let you kind of pay while you wait. Of course, we have to have the product here and the serial number to submit it to the ATF. So I don't want people to think we're having them pay up front on something we don't have. It's here. It's just, we've already
Yeah.
paid.
Yeah. Here's another question I get a lot when I again because I do the ads
Sure.
with in the episodes here. So I tried to copy and paste a bunch of them and put them on the screen here. Barrel threading. I get a lot of questions about the barrel threading process that you guys offer.
Yeah.
And I remember we spoke about it last time I
Sure.
had you on the show, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember exactly what that looked like. Can you explain it to
Yeah.
folks in a
Yeah.
more simplistic way than I'll ever be able to?
Sure, absolutely. So you could call us or order on our website, and we will mail you an empty rifle case. So you basically take your scope off and any other sling or bipod. You put your rifle in there. If it's an AR, you can just send the upper, or if you want to take your barrel out, you can. You don't have to, but you basically send us the whole gun in the rifle case. We give you a FedEx ground label. You put it on there. You either take it to FedEx ground or call them. They'll come pick it up. They send it to us. We thread it, and within a week, we get it right back to you. Usually, it turnaround's a couple days. We get it right back to you. The benefit of doing it with us is we do have a CNC lathe, so it's all computerized. And also, I've got a machinist that's all he does all day long. So he's doing 150, 200 barrels a day. I have a full time gunsmith that takes the gun apart. I have a full time machinist that runs them through the machine. So they're really good at making sure that it's done right and it's done from a computerized It's not a manual, it's a CNC lathe. Um,
Uh, okay.
Ship it right back out to you. So it's pretty turnkey. The biggest question I get is how long am I going to be without my gun? Probably 10 days at the most, even with shipping back and forth. So it's not like
Oh
we're
gosh,
making
that's
the gun.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I didn't know that. Let me ask you this, because now correct me if I'm wrong. I have the Banish 30 that I had in mind to put on my AR-15.
Yeah.
Uh is that reasonable?
Sure. Yeah. So
Uh, uh,
the good thing about the Banish 30 is you could use it on 30 cal and less. So you could use it on 223, 243, 65, 308, whatever you want. It's modular, so you can make that one shorter. So you can either make it 7 inches or 9. So it comes configured 9. But if you want, that top screws off and the end cap screws out. And you can screw the end cap right where you took the module part off, and you can shoot it shorter. So a lot of guys will shoot it shorter on the
oh,
AR and then the full length on, say, like a 308 or 65.
okay. That's good to know. So the question I have is I've been hesitant to be without my AR-15 because I'm a nerd and I like
Yeah.
my AR-15, and
Oh, yeah.
um so while okay, I already have the silencer.
Yep.
Um, can I still pay for that service to have you guys just thread the barrel for me? Because
Oh,
the
heck yeah.
shipping it to you, honestly, Brandon, is it's the process that you discussed where you've got the machining for it and all that.
Yeah.
But B, a 10 to 15 day turnaround is way faster than a local gunsmith.
Oh, heck
Uh,
yeah.
you know what I
Yeah, they'll
mean?
have it
And
forever.
so
Totally. And so yours doesn't have a flashlight or anything on it that just screws off?
the AR-15, yeah, it does.
Yeah, so you don't have to get that threaded.
No, you're right. I want to. I've got another 6.5 Creedmoor that my
Yep.
daughter uses. I want
Yep.
threaded,
Heck
and
yeah. Totally. Yeah.
oh, you're right. I don't have to send that AR in, do I?
No, no, just make sure
I
you
just
take the,
unscrew that.
yeah, just make sure you get rid of that washer because that crush washer will change the alignment of the silencer and it will hurt your accuracy. So make sure
Okay.
if it's a crush washer between the flashlight and the barrel, just take it off. And of course, clean it up if there's any, Loctite on there or whatever, clean that off it'll be perfect.
So I just take like my bayonet and stick it in those little openings and crank it as hard as I can, you think?
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
100%. Yes.
I'm
You're,
kidding,
you're exactly
folks.
right. Or use a screwdriver. Yeah, run a screwdriver through your flashlight.
Screwdriver.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
some
if
channel
it gives
locks.
you, yeah, if it gives you anything, you can put some heat on it because it might be blue Loctite that just needs a little bit of heat, but probably not. It'll probably just snap right off.
Okay. All right, good to know. But I can send my daughter's rifles, both of them, to you, and you okay. And what does that usually cost to have the barrel threaded? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's like 125.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
super cheap.
Yeah.
Oh, you got your prices right here on the
Oh,
website.
nice.
So if you
Good
guys
morning.
listening, go to silencercentral.com, services, barrel threading, and it talks about it. Yeah, cutting crowns, $70. That's if you want to move sights, muzzle brake timing, rock set, $44. Alignment, $25. Oh yeah, super super affordable. So
Good.
that's I think one of the reasons why you guys are the biggest, and why the growth has been so substantial is you guys are just so easy to work with. You make it easy for people. We can make payments. We can send you our
Yeah.
rifle to thread it.
Totally.
We can it's just straightforward.
Yeah.
But is there anything else before we wrap this up that you want the audience to know about Silencer Central, whether it's product or process, anything like that?
Yeah, I would like to talk about conservation for 1 second. So we do, if there's anyone out there in your audience that is a part of local conservation groups where they would like us to donate a silencer, we're willing to donate silencers to conservation groups as a donation. Right now, we're on track for giving away $5 million to conservation this year. So we're super proud of that. And the benefit to us is that if it's a local chapter of, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation or whatever it is, they end up talking about, hey, Silencer Central donated this free silencer, and it kind of gives us some word of mouth, and then hopefully the person that buys it has a good experience, and they tell the other people in the room. But we'd like to try to create relationships out there. So if there's anyone in your audience that says, hey, yeah, I'm part of a local chapter that does fundraisers that would benefit from a free silencer, have them just call us or email us, and we'd be happy to get them a certificate, and we let them keep 100% of whatever the donation goes for. And we just do it really for word of mouth, and then also to get that person who buys one to kind of become an advocate for us.
Yeah, that's and I second the effectiveness of that. You or Silencer Central donated one to the F4WM Foundation for Wildlife Management banquet here in Sanders County, Montana, that I went to a few weeks ago, and it was kind of neat because I felt like I was one of the only people that really knew a lot about
Yeah.
Silencer Central,
Good.
and so
Good.
as they were talking about it, I got to talking to everybody at the table. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
man, you guys have to try to go for that auction item I think it was the Banish 30.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here's what you do, and they're gonna take care of this part, and they're gonna put it on for you. And I just went on and on and on. And I think people are really interested in this kind of product, which by the way, I wanted to mention that's probably what helps lead to you were talking about your employees get really involved, the team,
Yeah.
the team members get excited about what they're doing. And I could totally see that because I get excited just talking about this. It's not like they're down there manufacturing, cans for pinto beans or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Like it's
Totally.
really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And
Totally. It's
so
cool.
yeah, it's way cool. And I just from my end, I want to thank you and thank Silencer Central for the support with this show. And I know you guys do a
Absolutely.
lot with conservation, which is a big deal for the Western Huntsman and Eastman's hunting journals in general. It's conservation is the reason why we do this, and getting this
Absolutely.
this information out there and saving the future of hunting. Do you have because I know you've done a lot of hunting recently, like out of state, out of South
Yeah.
Dakota.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to any kind of bead on what you see as a threat to the future of hunting, whether it's a conservation issue or like an anti-hunting industry kind of thing, um, that you would like to point out? I always kind of ask, what do you think is the biggest threat to the future of hunting from the standpoint of Brandon Maddox?
Yeah. I mean, the anti-hunting people they're always bad, but I think the biggest thing is just getting kids out there to do it, right? Because the reality is my dad didn't hunt. So I would argue that if I hadn't, had my uncle or my grandfather or even my father-in-law help get me into hunting and firearms, I'm not sure I would be as involved as I am today. So, and it's a challenge for me. I have two girls that one has shown a real interest, the other hasn't. So I can't, it's hard to plan a trip with just one. So,
Yeah,
we have to find ways to overcome those challenges and get them involved, boy or girl, nephew, cousin, whatever. Because if they don't have someone to kind of lead them and mentor them through that, then they're never going to have the exposure to it, and they're never going to
yeah.
do it. It's just going to kind of die away. Like I said, my dad's never hunted, so if I was waiting for him to teach me or to be my mentor for that, it would have never happened. So, um, it's really forcing yourself. It's easy to think about. I get so little time off to go hunting. It's all about me, but you got to also think about, gosh, there may not be a future hunting unless I get more people involved, because then hopefully they do the same when they're older.
I love getting my time. I love hunting solo, Brandon. I love being in the woods by myself, and it's like me against nature.
Yeah,
But I tell you what, there is nothing like getting my daughters out, and my daughters are both super enthusiastic about hunting,
good, good.
which is kind of a pain because one's a left-handed shooter and one's a right-handed shooter. So now I got to buy two bows, two
Yeah,
different rifles, and
yeah.
so that they can both be outfitted. Cost me a fortune, but
But at least your wife will usually approve the expenses if it's for the
she
kids, right?
does. Yep, she does. I've used that excuse. If she heard this, she has no idea. I've used that excuse so much. I've bought some hunting gear, and she'll get on my case about it, and I'll be like, "Oh no, this is going to help the girls,"
Yeah,
uh, and it is. Even though it's going in my pack,
yeah,
it'll
totally.
eventually help the girls at some point. I'll pass it down to them.
Yeah,
But no, I mentioned that big bear the girls and I spotted the other day. We're sitting up on this ridge, kind of watching a couple of these open face mountains, and I was looking off to the left because I'd noticed a cow elk had come out to feed, and
right.
um, I know that periodically. So the bears will kind of hang around the elk during this time of year because they're about to drop calves, right? Easy meal.
Yeah,
And so I was kind of watching that, and all of a sudden my daughter said, "There's a bear." And when I looked over at them, who were kind of sitting together, the look on their face just the look of disbelief because of the size of this bear
yeah.
and the fact that they'd seen him. Bears are really hard to spot. It made it all worthwhile, Brandon. And I couldn't agree more that getting the youth out there and getting them involved in hunting and getting them to experience something larger than what they can see, on TV or on their cell phone or something like that. Is I think it's critical for the future of hunting for sure. So,
Definitely.
well, I appreciate you joining me. This was a
Yeah,
fun
thanks.
conversation, Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity.
We need to just plan to have
Yeah,
like these
absolutely.
Silencer Central updates
Heck yeah, for
once or
sure.
twice a
Totally.
year.
Yeah, I want to hear about the 2 bear you shoot, so I want an update on that.
I'm gonna. I will. We're gonna. The goal is I'm a terrible filmer when it comes to hunting, but I'm gonna try
Yeah.
to film as much of it as I can, and I'll send
Awesome.
you some video.
I
I've
love
got
it.
your email. I'll send it over to you, and
I love it.
yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a good time. So, yeah, just again, I appreciate the support for the show and
Yes,
and
sir.
for
Absolutely.
Eastman's and let's get you back on in 6 months or another year, whatever you think. You're always
Love
welcome.
it. Absolutely. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Sounds great. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
By the way, those listening, silencercentral.com, you go to the show notes. You will find all that information for silencercentral.com, and I'll have the Instagram in the show notes. And check it out. I would highly encourage you guys to jump on there. And the two that I highly recommend are the Banish 30 and the Banish Backcountry. I think every hunter would do himself a great service or herself a great service by owning those two silencers. So check it out at silencercentral.com. You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at the Western Huntsman and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.